Revenge with Anjo.
The chandeliers above the dining hall glowed like captured stars, reflecting off crystal glasses and polished silverware. The Lawson mansion smelled of cinnamon and roasted chicken, the kind of expensive warmth that only appeared when cameras or guests were involved. At the center of the long mahogany table, Amira Lawson sat quietly, her black dress modest, her smile careful. She had promised herself this year's family dinner would be peaceful. Just one night of pretending they were a family that cared. But then her grandfather, Chief Lawson, raised his glass and said, "I'm proud you're using your education fund wisely, Amira." The room stilled. Amira blinked. "What fund?" she asked softly. The laughter around the table vanished. Her father, Mr. Lawson, coughed into his napkin, red wine spilling down his wrist. Her mother's face drained to white. Then her cousin, a boy too young to lie, whispered, "Wait." She didn't know. That whisper cracked the room open. Forks paused. Eyes darted. Amira felt her stomach twist. "What are you talking about?" she asked again, this time louder. Chief Lawson frowned, confused. "The Education Trust," he said slowly. "The one we established for you when you were 5. Your parents have been managing it." Her father's jaw tightened. "Dad, that's private," he said. Chief Lawson ignored him. "Private." His voice hardened. "It was meant for Amira's university fees. Every year I sent money into that account." Amira stared at her father. "You've been managing it," she repeated. Her mother finally spoke, voice trembling. "We use some of it for the house, for your brother's medical bills, for family emergencies." Amira's chest rose and fell rapidly. "I've been working double shifts in a law firm cafeteria," she said, "eating instant noodles to save for tuition. And you are using my fund for tiles and furniture?" Her father slammed his glass down. "Don't speak to us like that," he barked. Chief Lawson's expression darkened, the authority in his eyes cutting through the noise. "Enough," he said. "That money wasn't yours to touch." Mrs. Lawson lowered her gaze. "We plan to replace it," she murmured. Amira's voice broke slightly.
"When?"
"After my degree? After my future was gone." Silence swallowed the table. The only sound was the chandelier's faint hum. Chief Lawson's lips trembled with quiet fury. "You stole from your child," he said coldly. "From your own blood." The words hung like thunder. No one dared answer. Amira pushed her chair back. The scrape of wood echoed through the hall. "You watched me struggle," she whispered. "And you said nothing." Her mother reached out, but Amira stepped away. "Don't touch me," she said, eyes glistening. "You don't get to comfort me now." She turned toward the door, her heels striking the marble floor with sharp finality. Her father shouted after her, "You're being dramatic." She didn't look back. Outside, the night air hit her like a slap. The mansion's golden windows glowed behind her, but every window felt like an eye watching her leave. By the time Amira reached her small apartment in Yaba, her phone was buzzing with missed calls. She threw it on the couch and sank to the floor. Her hands trembled as her grandfather's words replayed in her mind. "We established that fund for you." She opened her laptop, her heartbeat loud in her ears. She typed the bank name she'd heard him mention years ago. Zenith Legacy Trust. After 3 attempts and one long call with a skeptical bank officer, she finally heard it. "Yes, there's an account under your name, Miss Lawson, but the balance is 0. 0. The word hit her like a punch. "Are you sure?" she asked. "Completely," the woman replied. Withdrawals were made over several years, all authorized by Mr. and Mrs. Lawson. Amira thanked her and hung up. Her reflection in the laptop screen looked foreign, eyes red, face pale, a girl betrayed by her own blood. She whispered to herself, "No more silence." That night, she didn't sleep. She gathered her receipts, pay stubs, tuition letters, anything that could prove what she had endured while her parents lived in comfort. For the first time, anger gave her purpose. The next morning, Amira walked into the university's legal aid center with a folder in her arms. The receptionist raised a brow. "You're a student?" "Law, 3rd year," Amira replied. "And I need help." She sat across from a soft-spoken attorney named Mrs. Chidima, who listened quietly as Amira told her everything: the fund, the lie, the silence. When Amira finished, the lawyer leaned back. "If the trust was created for your education and they used it for themselves," she said, "that's misappropriation of funds." The words felt heavy. "So, a crime," Amira whispered. "Yes," Mrs. Chidima said. "A serious one." For weeks, Amira gathered evidence. Bank statements, witness letters, her grandfather's written notes. Each document was a wound, but together they became her weapon. She filed a formal report through the firm's pro bono division, attaching every detail. It wasn't just about money anymore, it was about justice. Late at night, she would stand by her window, looking out at the city lights and whispering, "They taught me law to obey them. Now I'll use it to defeat them." The first court summons arrived 2 weeks later, carrying her parents' names in bold black print. Christmas came with tension instead of cheer. The Lawson mansion, once dazzling, now felt cold and sterile. Amira almost didn't go when her grandfather invited her again. "You deserve to be there," he'd said on the phone. So she went, not as the quiet daughter anymore, but as the woman who knew the truth. The servants opened the grand doors, and she walked in, head high. Her parents froze when they saw her. "Amira," her mother stammered. "You came." Her father's smile was tight, rehearsed. "Let's keep this civil tonight," he muttered. She gave him a small, dangerous smile. "Always." Dinner began with small talk that couldn't hide the tension. Aunt Clara commented on Amira's modest apartment. Uncle Bayo laughed too loudly at jokes that weren't funny. But Amira said nothing. She waited. When the main course was served, her father cleared his throat and raised his glass. "Family means everything," he began. "No matter our misunderstandings, we stay together." Amira's smile didn't reach her eyes. She reached into her bag, pulled out a brown envelope, and placed it on the table. The sound of it hitting the wood made everyone pause. "I'd like to toast too," she said calmly. Her father frowned. "Amira," she interrupted softly, "to truth." Then she opened the envelope and slid out the documents. "This is the record of every withdrawal you made from my education fund," she said, her voice steady. "Every date, every forged signature." The table went silent. Her mother's glass slipped from her hand and shattered. Chief Lawson leaned forward, his eyes dark with disbelief. "Is this true?" he asked. Amira didn't need to answer. "The papers did." "We meant to replace it," her mother sobbed. "We were drowning." "You drowned me," Amira said quietly. "And you called it parenting." Her father's voice rose. "You're humiliating us in front of the family." Amira met his glare. "I'm holding you accountable." "By dragging us to court?" "Yes," she said, "because apologies don't repay stolen years." The silence that followed felt heavier than stone. Her grandfather stood slowly, picking up the documents with shaking hands. "You stole from your child," he said again, voice breaking. "And from me." Her father tried to speak, but Chief Lawson cut him off. "You've disgraced this family." For the first time, Amira saw fear in her father's eyes, not of her, but of exposure. That night, the house felt smaller. As Amira walked toward the exit, her mother called out, "Please don't do this." Amira stopped but didn't turn. "You did this," she said softly. "I'm just finishing it." Outside, the wind was cold, but she felt lighter. Her car engine hummed like relief. Snow hadn't reached Lagos, but the Harmattan air carried its own kind of frost. As she drove away, she whispered, "They'll finally learn what silence costs." And she meant it. The first court hearing drew local attention. "Law student sues parents for fraud," the headlines read. Cameras waited outside the courthouse as Amira arrived in a simple navy suit, hair pulled back, confidence steady. Inside, her father sat beside his lawyer, eyes dark and angry. Her mother avoided looking at her. Chief Lawson was there too, sitting behind Amira, like a quiet wall of strength. When the judge entered, the murmurs stopped. The trial of blood versus blood had begun. Amira's lawyer, Mrs. Chidima, opened with precision. "This case is not about family conflict. It's about accountability," she said. Funds were allocated for a child's education and instead diverted for personal luxury. The defense tried to argue family necessity, but the evidence was damning. Bank transfers for home renovations, vacations, a new SUV. The judge's expression hardened. Each exhibit Amira's lawyer presented was another nail in the coffin of her parents' lies. When it was Amira's turn to testify, she spoke quietly, clearly. "I loved them," she said. "But love is not a license to steal." The defense attempted sympathy. "She's punishing her parents," their lawyer said. "She's angry." Amira's reply was calm. "Anger didn't make those withdrawals. Greed did." The courtroom murmured. Even the judge's assistant looked up from his notes. Her father finally spoke from the stand. "We only borrowed it," he said. "We plan to replace it when things improved." Amira's gaze was steady. "For 8 years?" she asked. He had no answer. Her mother wept silently beside him. The sound filled the room like confession. Weeks passed. Evidence piled higher. Family friends whispered. Old secrets surfaced. By the third hearing, Amira had become something more than a victim. She was a symbol, the student who took her family to court and didn't flinch. Reporters followed her outside the courthouse, asking, "Do you regret suing your parents?" She answered, "No. I regret trusting them without proof." The quote went viral overnight. Strangers began sending her letters of support, students, single mothers, people who had been betrayed by those they loved. When the verdict came, the courtroom was silent. The judge read the findings slowly. "This court finds Mr. and Mrs. Lawson guilty of misappropriation and breach of trust." A collective gasp filled the air. Her parents' assets were frozen pending restitution. They would have to repay every naira plus damages. Amira didn't smile. She just exhaled, the kind of breath that feels like release after years underwater. Her mother fainted. Her father lowered his head. Chief Lawson reached for her hand and whispered, "You did what I couldn't. You restored this family's honor." The media exploded. Headlines called her the girl who sued her parents. Some praised her. Others condemned her. But Amira didn't read the comments. She was already planning her next step. When the bank transferred the recovered amount into a new account under her name, she stared at the balance for a long time. She didn't feel rich. She felt free. Then she opened another account. Not for herself, but for others. "The Lawson Education Trust," she wrote on the form. This time, the signature was hers alone. The first deposit into the Lawson Education Trust came from Amira herself, half of her compensation. "Let it start clean," she told the banker. "No strings, no lies." Within weeks, she began receiving emails from students struggling with fees, much like she once did. Reading their stories reopened old wounds, but instead of pain, she felt purpose. Late at night, she sat by her window overlooking Lagos, the city lights reflecting in her eyes. "You tried to bury me," she murmured, "but I became my own rescue." Her parents' fall was swift. The court ordered the sale of their vehicles and vacation property to repay the stolen amount. The mansion that once hosted golden dinners now echoed with auctioneers' voices. Neighbors whispered. Friends turned away. For the first time, Mr. Lawson understood what it meant to lose everything money couldn't buy: respect. Amira didn't attend the hearings that finalized their repayment. "I've seen enough of their tears," she told Mrs. Chidima. "Justice doesn't need an audience." Weeks later, Chief Lawson invited Amira to his office. His voice had softened since the trial, carrying both pride and sorrow. "You've changed this family forever," he said. "Not everyone will forgive you for it." Amira smiled faintly. "Forgiveness isn't my goal," she said. "Integrity is." He chuckled sadly. "You sound like me in my younger days." Then he handed her a brown envelope. Inside was a letter in his handwriting, for the granddaughter who remembered what truth is worth. Alongside it was a land deed, a small property on the outskirts of Lekki. Amira blinked. "Grandpa, I can't accept this." He shook his head. "You earned it. You reminded me that silence is the most dangerous inheritance we pass down. For the first time in months, she hugged him. It wasn't a soft, shallow hug of formal families. It was real, trembling, filled with everything words couldn't fix. "Thank you," she whispered. He smiled. "Build something beautiful there. Make it your own courtroom of change." The land became the site of her dream project, the Integrity Center, a free legal aid hub for students and low-income workers. Amira spent every spare hour coordinating with volunteers, law graduates, and donors. She refused sponsorship from any company with questionable ethics. "We help, but we stay clean," she told her team. The grand opening drew a small crowd, former professors, classmates, journalists, and a few curious strangers. When she stepped to the microphone, her voice was steady. "Justice shouldn't depend on your last name or your wallet. It starts with truth." Among the crowd, Amira noticed a woman standing quietly at the edge, her mother. Dressed in plain clothes, eyes swollen, she looked smaller than Amira remembered. After the event, Mrs. Lawson approached her daughter slowly. "I didn't come to beg," she said. "I came to see what you've built." Amira hesitated, then nodded. "It's real this time. No lies." Her mother's eyes glistened. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "Not for being caught, but for forgetting what I owed you as a mother." For a moment, Amira said nothing. Then softly she replied, "I used to think I wanted an apology. Now I realize I just wanted honesty." Her mother nodded. "Can I volunteer here?" The question caught Amira off guard. "You have to start at the bottom, paperwork. Filing, nothing fancy." "That's fine," her mother said. "It's more than I deserve." Amira looked at her for a long time, then quietly said, "You can start Monday." It wasn't forgiveness, not yet. But it was the first bridge built on truth instead of guilt. Months passed. The Integrity Center grew fast. Articles were written about it, and students lined up daily for guidance. Amira's face began appearing on TV segments about youth activism and legal reform. But she never let fame distract her. Every time she looked at the framed quote above her desk, "Law without integrity is just power," she remembered why she started. The ghost of betrayal still followed her, but it had lost its grip. Now, it was just a reminder of what she'd survived. One evening, as she locked up the office, she saw her father waiting by the gate. He looked older, his once confident posture now bent. "You shouldn't be here," Amira said firmly. He nodded. "I know. I just needed to say something." She folded her arms. "Go ahead." He swallowed hard. "I hated you for exposing us. But now I hate myself more for what I did. I don't expect forgiveness." His voice cracked. "I just wanted to tell you that you were right." For a moment, the air between them was thick with everything unsaid. "Dad," Amira said quietly, "truth doesn't destroy families. Lies do." He nodded slowly, tears in his eyes. "You got that from your grandfather." She gave a small, sad smile. "No. I got it from watching what silence did to you." He opened his mouth to speak again, but she stopped him gently. "It's too late for us to be family, but it's not too late for you to live honestly." He nodded again and walked away. She didn't call after him. Some goodbyes don't need closure, only peace. Years later, the Integrity Center became one of Lagos's most respected nonprofit law initiatives. Amira expanded it into other states, Ibadan, Port Harcourt, and Abuja. The trust fund that once represented betrayal had transformed into hope for hundreds. She kept the first bank statement framed on her wall, the one with the word balance, 0 Nigerian nairas. A reminder she often told interns that the lowest point can become your foundation. When Chief Lawson passed away peacefully 2 years later, his funeral was quiet but dignified. Amira stood beside his casket, her mother beside her, both wearing black. The priest's words blurred as she whispered, "Thank you for believing me." After the service, she visited his grave alone and placed a folded letter on the soil. It read, "You taught me truth is louder than blood. I kept my promise." As the wind blew gently, she smiled, not in sadness, but in gratitude. That evening, She returned to the Integrity Center, now bustling with new faces. A young woman approached her nervously. "Ma'am, my uncle took my scholarship funds. I don't know what to do." Amira looked at her, saw herself years ago, and smiled gently. "Sit down," she said. "Let's start from the beginning." The girl's trembling hands relaxed. Amira reached for her notebook, the same kind her grandfather once gifted her, and began writing. Another case, another chance for justice. Outside, the city lights shimmered on the lagoon, and laughter from the staff echoed through the hallways. Amira stood by the window, watching the skyline. For years she had mistaken survival for strength, silence for peace. Now, she understood better. Real strength wasn't enduring the wound. It was choosing to heal it publicly, even when it meant standing alone. She closed her eyes and whispered, "Justice doesn't end with a verdict. It begins with courage." The next morning, the newspaper headline read, "Amira Lawson to receive National Human Rights Award for Youth Justice Advocacy." She smiled faintly as she read it over breakfast. Outside, the city pulsed with life, horns and hope blending into one restless rhythm. She reached for her coffee, looked out at the sunrise, and whispered the words that had carried her from pain to power. "They took my fund. I took back my future." And with that, she turned the page, ready for whatever story came next.